In today's video, we are once again taking a look to the upcoming format, Temporal Forces. We've obviously had the big Champions League over in Japan, so we've got some deck lists to look at. We've got what came top, but more importantly, we've got a ton of hands-on experience. So this last weekend, me and a group of friends have been, I don't know how many hours, too many hours playtesting, testing these decks, switching cards around, trying to find the perfect 60, trying to find the best deck. So we do have some experience with playing them, as well as just looking at results, which I think is important. So we're going to start by going through the results, talking about them, why, what came where, and how well the decks are playing, what are the best decks, and then we're going to finish this episode by ranking them like a tier list for predictions for EUIC. I will say there's some big surprises in what decks are best, not only in the results, but also in playtesting. And some decks are just disappointing, which is unfortunate. But as we've already seen, stuff coming after Temporal Forces does mean stuff like Future and Ancient are only going to get better and better. So let's jump into it with the top 12 first. So obviously, if you've not seen it, Lugia VSTAR 1, it's once again back. There is only one in the top 12, so it's not like it's dominating like it used to. But I will say from playtesting, this is probably the deck we would have predicted anyway, even over Charizard. It's got a great matchup into Charizard. If most of the field is Charizard, then Lugia seems like a good shout. Obviously, the new Cincino, able to one-hit anything as a single prizer is insane. And obviously, it's proved that. We will take a look at the list shortly. We'll just go through what's actually on here first. Arceus Vulpix, another one I've been a big fan of. I just think it shuts out... Again, it shuts out everything but Lugia. Obviously, Cincino, no ability, so it can just knock it out. We've got a few control decks, obviously a couple of Snorlax in here. We've got a great Tusk appearing. So I think control is just going to get better and better. Even decks that aren't control, we've seen play some of the cards like the Eri, or is it Ari? The one that discards some items from your hand. So I think it's just going to leak over into other decks, and we're going to see the format become a little more difficult as control takes over. Charizard coming in fourth then, not surprising if we're seeing so much control. Obviously, a couple of Snorlax in there. It is the Bibarel version, and from testing, it's felt... I don't want to say better than Pidgeot, because the fact Path's gone and we're talking about Bibarel being better than Pidgeot is insane, but it does give you that protection late game into Ionos. Early on, you can Evo and protect yourself from stuff like Greninja. There are a lot of bonuses to play in this version. You're also not as susceptible to Devo. There's a lot to love about this version. I'm very surprised to see a lost... I'm guessing this is some kind of lost box. Don't really know what was in it. We haven't got a list for it, unfortunately. A few Giratina in here. Arceus Giratina, which isn't a surprise. That's a very good deck going into the next format. The big surprise is Giratina Lost Zone. I didn't think that would still be a deck. It obviously loses Path, which is massive. It's one of its strongest cards. But somehow it's still working, so we will definitely take a look at that list. The list is a little crazy. I don't know how it worked, but it did. And then obviously we've got Koraidon, Roaring Moon, which is the Ancient box, which is a deck we've all been really enjoying in playtesting. It's a lot of fun to play, but most importantly, it's very powerful as well. So I do think there is some merit there. Surprised to see no Chien-Pao, no Goldengo in the top 12. It's hard to say. I don't know if this is going to be the best example. Obviously, Japan's metagame is entirely different to here. Like we'll see lists appear, but when they come over to Europe, US, the deck lists have changed massively, and the 60 is important, so it is going to be different over here. I don't think we'll see a layout like this at EUIC, but it's good to look at. It's good to look at what decks are doing well, and if you're not able to playtest, seeing stuff like this gives you some idea of what to expect, which is always good, and save you those hours and hours of playtesting. Like I said already, I am trying to bring you deck profiles. Normally it's the basic 60, so it's what we're starting with. Cards change, so as the gameplay videos come out, I will flash up the deck lists in those so you can see the updated 60. So if you do want to keep up on any of that, you want to be prepared for EUIC, make sure you're subscribed and keep an eye on the channel for those. We will be bringing some more to the channel very soon. We've got some more deck lists coming, and then hopefully film some more videos this weekend out for next week. So that's the idea anyway. So that's the list. Let's take a look at some of the actual deck lists though. So this is Lugia. 4-3 fairly standard for Archeops. Yeah. I do like 4-3 Minccino Cincino. The core for family does mean you can just get loads of Pokemon out. So it's very useful having the 4. We've only got one Snorlax, but I do actually like the second. It's just a great attacker into single price stuff. kind of hard to deal with, and it can get those things like Luminion, it can get those things like Squawk, which your opponent's going to be playing. So yeah, the second one there makes sense. The one fish we've talked about doing 2, because we do run 2 Collapse Stadium like this list. So I don't mind that. Just having it can win you the game. Obviously finding that boss or something later on. And only 2 boss is the most surprising thing in this list for me. I would say the rest of this is fairly standard. It's almost the 60 we're playing. We didn't have Serena in. We have got 1 in and taken out of research, so that's nice. The Jocks come out for something else. I've seen lists run 4 boss. We've sort of stuck on 3. I think boss is so important in this deck. You want your Cincino to be attacking the right targets. You don't want to waste it on a single prizer. So yeah, I don't know about that one, but everything else in here seems fairly standard for what Lugia is going to be. So if you're looking to play Lugia, I would say this list, take this list, run with it. It's yeah, almost identical to what we're playing. Maybe some energy slightly different. I think we've only got the 3 double turbo. Ideal Lugia list obviously won the Champions League, and from our testing has been a powerful deck indeed. Second place, I don't really know what to make of this. Arceus, we've been playing Arceus Vulpix Goodra. Obviously the Goodra is slightly better into stuff like Ancient Box. It's really good into Charizard. It's only a 1/1 line of Goodra, but it is good in some places. So I think I do like it in there. I don't know what the Radiant Greninja's doing in here, honestly. I know you're playing a ton of energy, but it almost feels like a lot of this energy is just in here to throw away with Greninja. I guess it gets you the extra draw. There's no path to stop it. But I'd much rather see the Bibarel line. Obviously, you need to hit an energy if you're Iono down late game, which is one way this deck can crumble. So the Bibarel is absolutely essential, I would say. Especially with the Squova, it just makes it so much easier to dig out of any dead hands. Slightly strange support line as well. The Chorus in there instead of more Iono and Judge. A bit more research in there in the 4 boss. So it is just aiming to disrupt with the Eri as well. 4 boss, yeah. Prime Catcher, Lost City, so you can get rid of some stuff. I do actually quite like Lost City in this deck. You're not really having anything knocked out, so it makes sense you're just trying to thin out your opponent's deck, get rid of those attackers so they can't reuse them. I think that's actually really clever, because if, like, I teched in a Gouging Fire to test in Charizard so I could beat this matchup, obviously it can one-shot the Vulpix, but then in return, Vulpix can one-shot Gouging Fire. So the Lost City would mean that tech only gets me the 1 or 2 prizes, so it's, yeah, that really does counter any tech Pokemon thrown into decks. I really like that inclusion, and it might be something we look at putting into our list. Other than that, I think it's fairly standard. We did see some really cool stuff in the finals, like not finals, semi-finals, like Lost Vacuum, the Greninja away, so it couldn't be brought into play by the control player, stuff like that. I do actually quite like the Vacuum in this list. Sharon's Care, we do run Turo as well, just so, yeah, you can't really bring anything up. We've got the Camo Pouch, just so they're sort of stuck on the bench. There's a lot to like about this list. I don't like the Greninja. I don't know why it's in there. I think Bibarel's better. You don't need this many water energy, and there's a lot of energy I'll probably cut to make room for the Bibarel. But in general, fairly standard Arceus Vulpix list. Then we've got Great Tusk. So this one is the mill version, so it is control still. We've got the Safeguard Mimikyu, we've got the Pidgeot V, we've got the one-off Comfey. I'm guessing that's just to draw cards, but that's really interesting. I would have never guessed that would be in this deck, or in any control deck, honestly. It's a cheeky little tech. I don't know about that one. I haven't tried it. I haven't really tried control in general. Yeah, very interesting list. This is sort of what we're going to expect from Great Tusk. It's going to be Great Tusk or Snorlax, the main decks. If I was going to play one, I'd play Great Tusk, because I think Snorlax is bad for the game. Great Tusk, Mill, and control like Banette. I think those things are fine. Mill, control. I just don't like Snorlax. Like, it traps you, and unless your deck has the answer, you can't really do much. And even then, you can just fill your deck with counter catchers. This one can do the same. Like, it can pull up stuff that you don't really want in the active, but you can retreat it. So there is counterplay to it, which is why, yeah, I definitely prefer this version. Very excited to see Great Tusk. Not sure I'll be excited when I play against it, because it looks quite good, but obviously only a single prizer as well. It's just a really nice deck, and it is one I do want to try. And if you guys want to see it on the channel, let me know. But those are the 3 lists we've got here. You've seen the top 12. Let's get into a tier list and start ranking these. Right, so here's the tier list. We are using Zapdos TCG's EUIC predictions, so obviously go show some love over there. We might not rank all of these. I think we're just going to try and hit on the most important ones. I'll try and make predictions for decks I haven't played. A good majority of these we have played now, so I think we're probably in a good spot to talk about most of them. If I can't, I will admit that. I don't want to say this deck's bad, having not played it, and then obviously it's something you wanted to play at EUIC. So I'll start with the decks we have done, and then we'll touch on the last one. So let's start with Future Box. It was one of the most hype going into this set, and even for me, like even now, I want to play this deck, but I don't think I'm going to, because I don't know, something's missing. We've tried it so many different ways. We've tried it pure Iron Hands. We've tried it with a load of spicy tech stuff in and stuff to help your matchups. The Iron Leaves is good into Charizard, but streaming them can be difficult. Obviously, you need a ton of EXP share and stuff just to keep your energy in play. You just need so much to go your way. You need so many cards at the right times. You need so many cards in play on certain Pokemon. You really want the heavy baton on the Iron Hands. You really want EXP shares on your other stuff. So if you have to commit something early, I don't know. I think maybe this deck needs like a Lost Vacuum so you can reuse your tools and stuff like that. Or maybe, is it Shopping Center that you can change your tools around? I don't know. The deck's definitely missing something. I don't think that stuff fixes it. I think it just needs more Pokemon. Like we've seen the Iron Thorns, which could be very interesting. And could be what this deck needs, honestly. Obviously, it does 140, and then you can up it to like 240. So yeah, you can do some big numbers. The deck is interesting. I think maybe we will see a good list for it at some point. The list we've made currently, and I will be doing a video on it on the channel at some point, hopefully this weekend, is good. I don't know it's a top tier deck. It's definitely not S. I don't even think it's A at the minute, honestly. So I'm going to put that in at B, just sort of middle ground. We'll come back to it. I'll put it in there for now. I'll see what decks go around it, because I think that's what's going to make the decision. Arceus Giratina. Now, this is an interesting one. It's one I've definitely taken a shine into. I like Giratina. I like Arceus. It's something I've played before in the previous format, but obviously now with Path gone, I don't know if it's better or worse, honestly. Getting Path before you can Arceus VSTAR sucks, but having the Path afterwards was so nice. The disruption is really good, so decks that aren't running Bibarel, you can judge them early on. You can Bibarel, Squove it back up. And just, yeah, I don't know. I think this deck, it works sort of like a control deck in that you control, you're disrupting their hand constantly. You can play stuff like the Eri to discard cards and just make it difficult for them. I've seen it with other things. I think I saw it with Grabber maybe, or that was the Lost Zone Giratina version. Anyway, there's a ton of control stuff you can play in this, which actually complements the deck quite well and its strategy. In terms of the meta game and what it's good against, I think it can stand a chance against anything if you can set up well enough, if you can disrupt well enough, which is always a good deck to play going into a tournament, especially one where you don't know what you're going to be up against. Just playing a consistent deck, a powerful deck, is always a good choice. So I'm actually going to put this in A. I don't think it reaches S. I think there's only a couple of decks that go in there, and you can probably guess what they are. Let's touch on them now, because we've all seen online Charizard has been absolutely dominating the format over in Japan. The top list is Bibzard, and then I think third was Pidgeot Zard. So two of the Charizards in the top three is absolutely insane, taking the most points by an absolute mile so far. So they can't go anywhere else. Obviously, Charizard is insane now, and it just gets better with Path gone. Obviously, the Pidgeot version able to find whatever it needs when it wants, and Bibarel protecting yourself against those Ionos, which is how Charizard can lose games, honestly. Getting shut out later on, getting Path. Obviously, Path not a thing anymore, so Pidgeot's fairly safe anyway. But yeah, these two are head and shoulders above everything else. There might actually be one more deck I put into S, but we will get to that. Everything else is going to be down here somewhere, because nothing's touching Charizard at the minute. There is things with good matchups, like we spoke about Lugia. Goldengo and Chempao are good into Charizard. It depends how much they're played. We've got Ancient Box, which not played enough of that matchup, but you've got to imagine Ancient Box in a good spot. Obviously, only with the single prizes, it's doing quite well. What else have we got on here? Let's talk about Gardevoir. We've made 3 lists now. We've looked at some lists other people have played. We've seen a few lists for after Temporal Forces, so for the set afterwards. And it moves more into like control with Bennett and stuff, which is a lot more interesting. I think currently there's no way I would touch this deck to play. It's lost all of its best features. I just don't think it's possible to get it to work at the moment. It doesn't have the stuff it needs. It doesn't have the Pokemon. I think obviously any psychic Pokemon that comes out, you can throw it in here. So I think that's going to be where it improves just as the format goes on and we get more Pokemon and more options for it. It's definitely one you want to keep. I think at some point it's going to be a good deck again. It's just I don't think it's now. It just doesn't have the attackers. It doesn't really have the setup anymore. Like you want to run like Arven, TM Evo just to get your Couriers in play and speed through, or you're not really doing much the first few turns and you can't play from behind as well. You don't have reversal. You haven't got the big Gardevoir, Shining Arcana Gardevoir to swing for big numbers. It just doesn't feel as good. It's going to have to go there, which is unfortunate because I do like Gardevoir. Let's go through like this. So let's see what we've played. Not touched on Great Tusk yet in the new format. We did play Sablezard. So we're going to discount Lost Boxes as one, else it can get a bit silly. Where does this go? The Sablezard sucked from what we played. It might have been the list. It might just be that it's not as good going into the next format. It's hard to say. I think the one, it was like Paradox Rift Box or whatever people decided to call it with like Iron Hands, Roaring Moon. That probably stands a better chance. I don't know if it's A tier. I'm going to put it at the top of B. It's probably, well, it's going to show up more than Future. I just don't know how much. We're going to put that in B for now. Giratina. Now this one's difficult because obviously I've played played against it a ton in this format, but it does change. So we'll come back to that one. Chen Pao. Now I think this has to be an A, just because it's got good matchups. It's got the Prime Catcher to rush the Greninja now, which is one of the most scary parts of this new upcoming format. Prime Catcher makes it very easy to gust the Manaphy. Then you only need Cologne, and you are laughing. You can take out their start and just shut them out of the game. I think Chen Pao, once the list is perfected, it still at times just feels like it is a very high roll deck. You need a lot to go your way. So there's no way I can put it in S because I just don't. I'm almost thinking B, but I think it's just too powerful. So if someone can get it working, if someone's on a lucky streak, it's probably going to be the deck to play. I think obviously you need a bit of luck on your side to do well at these things. So I think maybe Chen Pao is a shout. If you're going to need that luck anyway, you might as well put it into a deck that is it's just going to tear the format apart. I think the fact that you can Greninja so early now is, yeah, it's going to be scary. Shutting off that Manaphy. What else have we got here? Raging Bolt. It doesn't do anything better than Goldengo or Chen Pao. They're much better at hitting the bigger numbers. It's much easier to do. I would much rather play one of those decks, and I think Raging Bolt just doesn't. It's not quite there. I don't know what else it needs really. It just feels like those decks, and those decks have had a lot longer time to build lists and just practice with. Maybe it is. It just needs more time. But for now, I'm going to put it down here. It's been very underwhelming from what we've played, and yeah, I'm not really sure about it going into the format. Goldengo, so let's touch on that. Very similar to the two lists we've just ranked. I think it would have to be up here. Where would I put it? Probably here. Chen Pao might move up. I'll leave it like that for now. Goldengo is looking very good in the new format. Cryptomaniac means later in the game. Well, not even later in the game. After turn 1 or 2, as long as you've got some Gimme Ghouls in play, you are just stacking your deck. You're drawing the cards you need. I think some of the difficulty of this deck, like this deck will definitely be more difficult to use because you do need to know what to stack. It sounds easy, but you need to think a lot harder with this deck. There's a lot more decisions to make, and I think it's going to be very interesting. Like I said about Chen Pao, it can pull off the Greninja very early, which is scary. Obviously running the Prime Catcher Cologne combo as well. It's got the Pokestop to find all of those goodies. This is a deck to keep an eye on because I do think it could just take over the format, honestly. And it's definitely one I would potentially choose. I would say anything in A and S I would go for. Yeah, it's just looking very good going into the new format. Obviously, no path means it doesn't have to run a ton of workers. It can run Iridas to find those Poffins. It can run the Crypto like we spoke about. And just some disruption with like Roxanne, Iono. So this deck has been This deck has been one of the best in testing. It beats a lot of stuff. It struggles into the single prizes, which is where it really does slip up, but there's not much you can tech in to help with that. And I think that might just be, you can't beat every deck, so yeah, obviously that is going to be a loss for Goldengo. Let's talk about the single prize deck then, Ancient Box. I honestly don't know where to put this. I think it has to be in A. Again, I don't know where in A. It can't really be in B, because even when we've played it and it's sort of stalled out because you're throwing so much away and you're trying to reach for those numbers, you can afford to lose a few turns. Like, you're playing a single prize deck, they need to take 6 knockouts, and you are playing with the capsule like 200 HP Pokemon. It is ridiculous. Like, Charizard can't one-shot one of these, which is crazy. It's very difficult to deal with, and I don't think a lot of decks can just keep swinging through them, especially if you're taking knockouts in return. It's very easy to discard stuff. We've got Ultra Ball, Vessels. The Vessels being ancient cards is a massive help in this deck. I do prefer the single dark version, so maybe with some of the 2-prize Roaring Moon as well. Not really sold on the Koraidon. We did play it a ton, and we've only just switched over to Roaring Moon EX, so I think, yeah, dark in general, full dark just feels better. You got the 4 dark patch, and you can get set up even without Sada, so I think that's probably a better version of this deck. It does mean there is a chance you start with a Roaring Moon EX and the prize race is a bit easier for them, but I think it's probably worth the risk. We only run 2 Roaring Moon EX, so it's not the most likely. So we've tried 1 or 2 more of these, so we'll touch on them and then we'll quickly rank the other ones. I can't really talk about them, but I will just throw them in the tier list, so if you want to screenshot it and take a look, come back and shout at me for being wrong after EUIC, you can. Lugia VSTAR. Straight into S tier. We need to play more games of it, but every game so far, turn 2, it's got the 2 Archeops in play, and it's flying. It is running more search than before. The search isn't as good, but there's just so much to find what you need in this deck. The Master Ball is really nice. I think that's one of the biggest points. You've got a few other cards that help. The Serena's nice into discarding the certain cards you need and drawing more. It's just so much going for this deck. The Call for Family thins out your basic Pokemon, so your Great Balls are hitting better into those Archeops and other things you need, the Lugia VSTARs. The deck just feels good right now, and we've seen it win, obviously, over in Japan, so I do think it deserves its spot in at number... It's in here somewhere. I wouldn't be surprised if it's number 1, honestly, because it's such a good matchup into Charizard. So if Charizard is the other S tier deck, it only makes sense this goes in at the top. But I don't know. I'm going to put it in the middle, so it sort of splits the Charizards. I think that's fairest. And then these other ones, honestly, some of these are difficult. Like Gardevoir, I wouldn't play this. Snorlax is in a good spot. I honestly wouldn't play Miraidon. I'd probably still put it like here, though. Torterra seems good, so we'll go there. Banat I wouldn't play. Valiant maybe in here. Dialga I would actually maybe put in B. It's one we do want to try. Where I'll put it at the top of B. I think it actually looks really good. And again, it's one we want to test and play a little more of. Roaring Moon EX I think moved into this deck, so I'm not even going to rank that. I will just count that in this deck. Giratina, it's got to have dropped a few places. Maybe bottom of A. And then the control stuff is definitely in A as well, which is unfortunate, but it's in there. I'm going to put Great Tusk above Snorlax. I just think it's more interesting and better for the game. So that is my tier list. Let me know your comments and changes you would make down in the comments below. That's all I've got for this episode, though. If you've made it to this point, thank you so much for watching. All the best for EUIC, and I will catch you in the next one.